Over the past few months, I've had the honor of speaking to so many people and finding out how they found strength in their storm. But I believe there's one more thing we need to look at: the caregiver. How does the caregiver find strength in the storm? And today I get the privilege of talking to one of my most favorite people. He is my rock, my supporter, he is my encourager, he is the love of my life, and he has shown so much love, grace, and strength through my journey of breast cancer, and I'm so excited to have him here with us today. Please help me welcome my partner in crime, my lobster, Perzan. Erin, I just really wanted to thank you for being here. I wanted you to tell your view on caregivers because it's important for people to see that part of it. I'm sure it'd be a challenge for me having to ask my husband how it made him feel when I was going through breast cancer. But I just wanted you to get the real take of what it was like going through it. And I just want you to feel free to be honest, and this has nothing to do with anything that would hurt my feelings or anything like that. I just want your honest opinion so that we can help other people that may be going through this right now and see that they're not alone.
Absolutely.
Okay. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, how did that make you feel?
At first, it made me feel very helpless because I'd never gone through that walk with anybody in my family personally before. I know you had multiple times, unfortunately, and I only got to witness pieces of what you went through. So for me, the very first thing I felt was just complete, total helplessness, and I really didn't know where to go from there at first. It was a pretty big shock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for both of us. What did you struggle with the most when I was going through the treatments and surgery?
Not having an avenue to vent, if that makes sense.
Well, you couldn't vent to me.
No, and I didn't want you to see my struggle either because you didn't need that. But I guess what was difficult is, as a guy, there wasn't really a lot of avenues to find some mode to verbalize it or talk with someone or whatnot. We weren't really heavily involved with the church at the time, so I didn't really have a network there. And no offense to any of my friends, but none of them have been through this with their wives. And so when you tried to talk to someone, I mean, some of my buddies and whatnot tried to be there, and some of them were, but they didn't know how. And I knew they didn't, because when you're trying to talk about certain things that you're going through in stages of diagnosis, or when you're looking at results from testing and stuff like that, when you're trying to express certain fears and just some of the mechanics of what your brain is going through, they didn't know what to say. And so that, for me, because I talk a lot.
He does. His name means mouthpiece.
Yes. So that was a hard spot, because you know how I am. If I'm stressed out about something, I'll regurgitate what I'm stressed out so that I purge it, and then I kind of move on. It's just a little, and then okay, you have my freak out moment, and off I go.
But you feel that you didn't have a place to do that?
No.
So then you had to keep it all inside. What did that do to you?
I didn't realize it at first, but in time, it made me sick.
Explain that.
Well, I wasn't sleeping properly. When I finally got you to sleep, and when I finally got the kids to sleep, and once the dishes were done and clothes were clean, and once the house was in order, homework was done, I would go drive. I would just make sure everyone was resting and whatnot. We had the security system, so I was able to see if there was, I could look at the cameras in the house. I would just go drive. and
didn't
talk
know
to
that.
myself. But it was when I went grocery shopping, I would go at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I wasn't sleeping anyway, so all you guys were all asleep, so I figured, okay, that was at least me time. And so I would go get a coffee. I'd go, a couple times I'd go sit somewhere at like an old Chicago, or I'd go sit at, I can't remember that Asian place we used to go to.
Oh, with the sushi.
Yeah, the really good sushi.
Yeah,
I used to
can't
go there
remember.
and have my, whatever that was, my pomegranate dragon bomb. You know, it was just my hour and a half at best of just trying to take a breather and go, holy crap, I got to do it all over again tomorrow.
Was there something that your friends or people you knew could have done that would have made it a little bit easier on you?
I mean, there was random things here and there that, you know, would occasionally happen. When you first started going through this journey, like it was kind of, there was, if I remember right, there was like, I think there was 3 or 4 months where we were kind of just on our own. And I don't think I really would have changed that too much, having a lot of involvement at the front end, because I think that probably would have impaired my ability to just react and just go with it. So I don't know there was really much. I mean, like I said, there's a couple of my buddies here and there, you know, Leo Butler, our neighbor, we were just starting to get involved at Crossings Community Church. So, you know, we were slowly starting to have that sort of support mechanism trickle in. But at the very beginning, I don't know that I actually would have changed it when I think about it.
Maybe not the beginning. How about a year in, 2 years in? You know, the first,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that I went a year and a half, almost 2 years, where I didn't even sleep through the night.
Yep.
But you were also exhausted because I wasn't sleeping, so I'd keep you up. Is there something that people could have done then, like 6 months in, a year in, like after the surgeries? Now that we were just doing surgeries, was there something like maybe them taking you out, taking you for coffee, just picking you up and doing something for you? Any of that have helped?
Yeah, I think there would have been some of that would have helped a good deal. Because, I mean, that's just part of what makes you feel sort of human, right?
I just remember you saying a couple times that people would always come up to you and say, how's Michelle, and no one would ask about you.
Yeah, it was very few and far between. And I mean, it's natural, right? It's people tend to go to what they understand, not what they don't see behind the scenes, right? You know, there's a few people that I worked with that would check in with me. You know, of course, they always asked about you, but definitely could have helped having, like I said, more that sort of support mechanism where, you know, you had a few key people that would do that, take you out for a random coffee and not even talk about anything, you know, or just go see a show, or, I mean, just do stupid stuff.
Do something that has nothing to do with me or the cancer. Or,
Yeah.
I get that. Is there something that people did while we were going through everything that made it a little bit more difficult for you, even though they didn't mean it?
So, you know, I can get pretty passionate. And when people speak out of ignorance, I had a hard time keeping my mouth shut.
Right? I know where he's going, but can you give an example?
I mean, there was a couple things, like people would ask us what we were doing as far as decisions on what steps we were taking and whatnot. Everyone's got their own walk, everyone's got their own faith, everyone's got their own journey, everyone's got their own prayer lives, their choices that they make. And if someone wants to ask me what my choice is, okay, fine, and have a discussion about it. But when you get that instant, like, bam, you can't do that, you got to do this, you got to do that, and they start just jumping all over your choice, that makes it difficult, because they don't know what we've gone through, they don't know the discussions we've had, they don't know the prayers that we had. So when I say that, speaking out of ignorance, I get everyone, there's other people too, have different expertise and so on, and I value that. But when you start to force on someone, or start to make out that you know exactly what that person's going through, I have a hard time with that. You know, someone going through a bilateral mastectomy is not the same as a boob job. And there were a few comparisons that, tell Michelle to call me, I know exactly what that's like, you know, and I kind of had a dumbfounded look for a second. I was like, you had a mastectomy? oh no, I had a boob job. I'm like, well, what's that got to do with what Michelle's going through? I fail to understand that. And like, so those are some of the conversations that came up. It was sort of funny, but not exactly the same. Whole different ballgame. Sometimes that, and that's probably more my fault than anybody else's, is for me taking it personally. But it was hard to deal with ignorant comments, but also the empty statements. When people say my thoughts and prayers are with you, I have a hard time with that. And it's nice to say, but it's almost a selfish way of deflating a situation that you don't want to involve yourself in. You know, when you're telling someone that you're having an issue and you're having a battle, and they say, well, look, at my thoughts and prayers are with you, it's almost like that person is saying, well, don't forget about me, that I care. Thoughts and prayers aren't going to do anything for me. A prayer united, yeah, come pray with us. Actually, don't just say it. Don't just leave it there at the thoughts and prayers. Okay, we'll pray for us now then. Here's what I'm battling with. You know, it's a lot of times I would say, look, I'm struggling or whatever, and then you get my thoughts and prayers are with you. I let
Instead
Michelle know I
of
prefer.
instead of just saying, okay, let's pray right now.
Yeah, you know, because that's a totally different scenario, right? For anybody. I don't know if I'm in someone's thoughts. You know, again, it just seems kind of empty. And I know you've been through that before, but there's things like that where people miss an opportunity to actually just take action. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's not just someone saying something because they really don't know what to say or do, if that makes sense.
So instead of them just saying things maybe may come across empty words, do it.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, well, you know, if you ever need anything, well, if you're saying right there, I do need something, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
To just, if you really want to do something, then do something right there. Don't,
Yeah.
okay, I'll bring you a meal tonight, or I'll do this for you tonight,
Yeah.
or let me take you out for coffee right now, or like do something.
Yeah.
When somebody's reaching out to you, then take their hand, they're drowning. I remember there was a couple times after my surgeries, I was on medication, and you would say that, why are you laughing? I was laughing. Anyway, I was on medication, you had said living with me was like living with someone with Alzheimer's. And I remember when you said that, like, it would break my heart, because I know that I couldn't remember things. Like from 5 minutes when I said, like I'd say something, 5 minutes later I couldn't remember it. Or I just want you to explain, how are you able to not go crazy during that time, or how were you able to get through that period? Because that was months and months, maybe over a year. I
just want to clear the record, I didn't say that to her. Yes, I had no idea you heard that conversation there. I had been venting to someone. It was difficult because you didn't know what you were going to get sometimes. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I had started to go back to work. So I was at the office and I came back. I think I was running an impacted schedule. I made sure I was home as early as I could be, because I think I was picking up the kids still from school and stuff there for a while.
Because I did drop off.
Yeah, you were doing drop off.
I couldn't remember.
And yeah, well, exactly. But
it's funny now because everybody's safe.
There were some times, like, I would sit in the driveway and make sure that my head was purged for any kind of stress or negativity, because, you know, I had my own challenges at work, and then let alone now I got to come into the house when you're back living your home reality, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It was hard because the medication that they had you on, there was no self-control. You know, you weren't you, your mind wasn't you, mm-hmm. Your body wasn't you. It was like being sensitive on steroids, being overreactive on steroids, being emotional on steroids. Like, it would hit such a myriad on the scales that it made it very difficult sometimes, because you didn't know what you were going to get. Like, do I say hi, or do I say hey, or do I say hey? Like, you know, it may seem like a bit of an exaggeration, but almost how you felt, like you had to watch everything you say, because it was like the easiest thing would either trip it up. On the other side of it is, you know, sometimes we'd be having conversations and it'd be like that 51st date sometimes, where it's like, hi, I'm Aaron. not as bad as that, but we would talk about something and I'd be like, we just talked about this. And then we'd talk about it and I'd be like, honey, we just talked about this. And you're like, I don't remember. And that was, I think, it was tougher on you because that was when you get frustrated. Some days, yeah, okay, the emotions would be wherever, okay, we got that dealt with, but I think what really nailed you was the forgetfulness, because it irritated the living daylights out of you, because you're a very organized and a very structured person. When you're off of that sync, it's like you feel out of control. When you feel out of control, it frustrates you. And when you can't remember, all of that gets affected. And I think that was the worst part, because I don't think anybody outside of this house understands that moment that you went through. And it would be like, you could have a conversation one day and, it'd be the next day something else would come up and you would just have no clue about it. And yeah, I'd get frustrated sometimes. I'd be like, I just told you about it, or we'd have to go back through texts or whatever. And, and you would feel horrible. And then, sometimes we'd fight or other things would happen, and it just goes around and around.
And I share a lot in my book called Strength in My Storm, Faith in Breast Cancer. I share a little about the medications they put me on and how it affected me. I just didn't do well with medications, and these are just some of the side effects. And when Aaron's saying that people don't even know what I went through, they're not. There's some people I know that had their feelings hurt because I might have forgotten things, or they told me things that I just honestly didn't remember, or it wasn't personal, but I had to learn to forgive myself that I couldn't remember because I had no control over it. But it's really frustrating, and there's people out there, going through surgeries, different kind of things, and their caregivers may not know that some of the side effects are memory loss, and the frustration could be enough to drive them over the edge. Some people don't know that after going through surgeries that the going under the anesthesia.
Well, just the anesthetics itself,
the anesthetics you can lose your memory from, and people don't know that.
Yeah, I was going to say that. In a lot of cases, when you go under, it can take the brain a minimum a year to recover just from that one simple anesthesia. And when you've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row, in a year, that's almost saying you got 4 years of brain repair going on. Like that's major, the cloudiness and the fogginess, never mind the medication, it's just from the anesthetics itself.
And that's why it's such a tough job for the caregivers, because they're not only putting up with, I don't want to say putting up, he did have to put up with me though, they're dealing with the patient, taking care of them, but then they're dealing with the side effects, perhaps the medication, of the surgery, of the anesthetic. Like there's a lot on the caregiver, because the patient is there. The caregiver has to watch and can't do anything. I always said it was harder for me being caregiver because I had no control over it. Whereas being the patient, at least, it's you, but the caregiver to me was far more challenging than it's challenging.
Well, it's hard not to feel anxious. Thank God where I was working at the time wasn't very far away. I mean, it was 20 miles, and anyone knows Houston, 20 miles takes like an hour and a half sometimes. But at least it wasn't that far away. And the beauty of where it was is that I had multiple ways to get home. And I remember there was times when you're like, I just picked up the kids, I think. Or you're like,
I don't remember how I got home.
I just drove home and I have no idea how I got here, and I'd be like, I'm coming home. Because that's a horrible feeling to think that, like, right now, like my wife can't and shouldn't be out there driving, let alone herself. But like, when then you got the kids in the car, and then it's just like, and when you hear that, I don't remember driving, like it puts a whole nother thing in your head. You're like, holy smokes. You're like, what if something would have happened? And I know that's horrible to think like that. Thank God nothing did, but still, that's the kind of thoughts. And I got to a point as well, like I told my work, I'm working from home, sorry.
I know.
You know, you were doing your best, and we had other things, but you can't just call someone to drive your kids every day. At the time, they were going to private school. A problem with private schools is that you usually have multiple families from multiple places converging to one, versus like now where you're a little more localized, where you got kind of like everybody on the block is going to the same place.
Yeah.
So, you know, that makes it difficult.
So going through all of that, I mean, you had a lot on your plate. How were you able to find strength during, like, especially in the midst of the storm, like when everything was happening?
Because you were worth it. Like I told you, first how I came to terms with this whole thing from the very start. Because I remember feeling numb from my head to my toes when you first told me that you had cancer. When I walked through the door that day, your face was just white. You were just sitting in the living room of that rental house that we were in, and I could just see your eyes were just like gone. And it was just horrible to see that pain in your face and that fear and that scare. And I wanted to do everything in my power to take it on, because I didn't want you to go through it, but I can't. So then I had to come with that reality that I can't take that on. So how in the heck am I going to support this? And I remember sitting in the garage. I was just sitting on a 5-gallon bucket. I just was talking to myself and kind of praying and talking to myself. It sounds really weird, but the way I came to terms was somehow I had to accept the worst case scenario. Now, I didn't know what was all going on. I didn't know where we were at that point. Again, a little bit of inexperience and a little bit of ignorance on my part to this, right? But you know, when you hear cancer, everybody's mind tends to go to the worst. And my mind went there. I was just like, holy smokes, I'm only, what was I, 33, 34, 32 at the time?
32.
32. We had 3 boys. I was just like, am I seriously going to lose my wife? And so I somehow, on that 5-gallon pail in the garage, I came to terms with accepting that I was going to lose you. And that may sound very dark and bizarre, but somehow me saying, if this is what's going to happen, then so be it. However, I'll be damned if I'm not going to put my best foot forward and push through this and make it whatever I need it to be for my wife. Some people that I've shared that with think that's horrible and dark. I don't know. That was my talk with God. I basically, in a spite of anger, said, if you're going to take her, then fine, but I'm not going down with the fight either. You know, and if that kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. But somehow with that, I ended up finding faith and trust in that and going, it's going to be okay. I've got this. And you can do it. Ever since pretty young, I was always told I was like a cat that bounced on my feet. And a lot of it had to do with that reactionary ability where you just kind of have this switch that just goes, and you just have that mechanism to deal with it. And that's how I found it again.
If there was if somebody watching today just found out maybe that their wife is diagnosed with cancer, or you know, somebody, a caregiver that's going to be watching somebody that's, whether it's cancer or some other kind of disease, what's one thing, is there one thing that you want to say to them or share with them that may help them?
As a guy to a guy, if it was a husband that's just starting to go through this and his wife maybe starting to go through it, is start building your support work now. Start finding those people that are around you. I mean, heck, I'm available. 956-832-9187 is my cell phone, and I'd be more than glad to take a phone call or a text and just pray, give advice, help with certain things, especially on what to expect. And my big thing would be is educating yourself very fast. That doesn't mean Google. because Google can throw you way off into right field and you don't want to go there.
Can't believe everything on Google.
Yeah, it's very quickly you'll start to find people that have been through this very quick. It's kind of just weird how that kind of starts to come out and share their stories and learn their stories. And the reason why I say that is because when you start to go through the diagnosis, and you'll remember this better than anybody.
Will I?
It's, yeah, the surgeries and the after effect of surgery, right? Everybody's got all the answers for. They know when you go through a bilateral mastectomy that you're going to have discomfort, pain, you're going to have nausea, you're going to this and this and that, right? They know what that looks like. Okay. When you go through the reconstruction process, they know what the surgical and the healing process looks like. But what no one prepares you for is the after effect. You know, some people think that, okay, Michelle's had reconstruction and, you know, wash your hands and it's kind of just done now. It's not. Mm-hmm. All the lingering side effects of the medication, they're still there, impacted your body. You're going to have discomfort all your life. You don't have your lymph nodes anymore, so your body doesn't express toxins properly anymore. So you have to have little saunas in the bedroom and find different ways of getting your body to express the toxins. You have to wear a sling on your arm when you fly because otherwise your arm, like there's things like that people don't prepare you for that are going to be there for the rest of your lives. Now you're going to adjust to it, that's fine, but it's that fact. That's where the education is preparing for what's down. Yeah. You know, you can't look too far ahead. There are basic steps that you can start to prepare yourself. You know, fortunately, as we started to grow through this, we had people at the Crossings Community Church, and when you started to go through some of the worst surgeries, you know, Daniel Willingham, he sat at the hospital
yeah.
with me the whole day, along with Rosie. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and then there were people that were meal training, bringing meals, and like that was a huge help. There was people, the Walls, the Willinghams, the Merrills, there's a few others there I'm forgetting, I'm sorry, but there was people like that were stepping in to help with the kids. In some cases, a couple, 2-3 times or days in a row, and some of them, you know, had to be at like 4 o'clock in the morning because we had to be prepping for surgery at 5 or 5:30. Yeah. So we ended up starting to get that support mechanism there. But my biggest advice, anyone that's just starting to go through it, is find the strength more to talk about it. Don't keep it in, talk about it. Find those support groups, because if you don't talk about it, nobody knows. And sometimes that was where I failed, is because I got into the habit of putting on the smile, nodding my face, and saying, I don't know how you nod your face, but I can nod my head. But I would nod my head and just, yeah, everything's fine, and I really wouldn't be honest and open and say, no, I'm drowning here, I'm struggling, you know, I'm losing my mind with the kids, or I'm frustrated, or I'm angry, or you know, that takes its toll. And so that's probably a lot more advice than
that's good advice.
But
no, that's exactly perfect.
I'm available to help.
I just wanted to really thank you today for sharing and just being open and honest. And you know, I know it was everything that you went through was a struggle, and you did a lot for me. And I'll never be able to thank you enough for standing by my side and being my encourager and my strength, and for loving me and just being such a good example for the boys of what a husband and a dad is. And I just thank you. And I just really honor you for everything that you did for me. Appreciate it.
Bible says, he who findeth a wife findeth a good thing. And you've always been my good thing. Love you too.
If you know somebody that's a caregiver, please reach out to them. You know, they may say everything's fine, but they may be drowning. They may need help. They may just need that hand from you. And instead of just saying, what do you need? Bring them a meal. Take them for coffee. Just be their friend and be there for them, because you know what? You might make a difference for them that last little string, they just need hope, and just be that hope for them. Just want to thank you for being here. I want to thank our sponsors. Thank you to Fantastic Sounds. Thank you to the Guest Foundation. You can learn more about them on our website. And we will see you next week, where my passion is to help you find strength in your storm.